Hello everyone, this is Thomas with The Joystick Show, and just want to let you guys know that for this episode, we've actually gone a little in reverse. Normally we do new trailers and news, but for this week we wanted to jump right into the new show, The Last of Us, and review that first. Next week we will have our new trailers, news, and The Last of Us reviews going forward for the rest of the season. So thanks and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Joystick Show, where Hawaii boys talking story about comic news, pop culture, and video games. If this is your first time, no, we're The Last of Us.
Friends.
I'm your co-host, Drake.
That work?
Thomas? Yeah, friends, that works.
I'm here. Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Scott, are you there?
Oh, hey, I'm here too. How's it?
It's The Last of Us.
We're the last.
And it is The Last of Us week. Yay!
Yeah! It came out. It came out of the closet, and it came out fabulous. And we just want to let you know that this is certified expired milk, so it's going to be real spoiler heavy.
Oh yeah, full spoilers.
So just listen, get over it, or don't listen and stay here. Or don't, because we're going to spoil it. So figure out what I mean.
I don't know what you mean. So yeah, we'll go full spoilers on this bad boy. So we're talking The Last of Us episode 1 tonight. We were talking about Alice in Borderland season 2, the whole season and the finale and the wrap up. And then we have Velma. Drake watched Velma, the new animated series on HBO Max. We got My Hero Academia episode 15. And last but not least, we have SpyxFamily, which I believe Scott wrapped up, which is another awesome anime and that I have watched or started watching as well that I really, really like. So let's jump into the meat and potatoes. The biggest thing that I think is out for everybody right now out there, and it just dropped on HBO Max, which is The Last of Us. Initial thoughts and impressions, guys. Drake?
I thought it was awesome. And I'll get into a little bit more why I thought it was awesome. But I mean, capital A all the way through E. If you're not watching it, you're missing out. So watch that shit.
100%. Yeah, Scott?
Yeah, the first episode was amazeballs. I just was thinking after watching, I'm like, man, Pedro Pascal has freaking Mandalorian and this show now.
I know.
This show's going to be huge because this episode was amazing. He's good for him, you know?
Good for that dude.
Seriously. Yeah. What is he not in? That's fantastic. Yeah, even last year with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I mean, he was a treasure in that movie. Like, he was adorable. The guy can do like no wrong.
Yep.
Or
Kingsman. He was good in Kingsman.
He was.
Wonder Woman 2.
Yeah, Wonder Woman 2.
Let's not bring that up.
He was good in Aquaman.
Yeah, I mean, he was good at it, but yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
That movie was not great. Yeah, so likewise with you guys, I'm right there on board. It was super fucking good. They came out swinging. Like, I guess we can start off. I really liked the intro to it. I liked how it showed us in 1968. You know, there was a scientist where they were talking about what's going to be the biggest threat to humanity. And just we know from the video game that it was a fungus, the cordyceps fungus that takes over the human brain. I really liked that start to the show. What did you guys think about it?
I thought it was very subtle, and why I say that is because when I was watching it with my wife, she was scrolling through TikTok, and I was like, "Bro, you got to pay attention to what this is doing, because this is the whole reason why this thing is doing the thing." She's like, "Yeah, I'm paying attention." And it's just like this part is like really boring, and I'm like, "Yeah, because it's a fucking whole fucking thing."
That's Christine was the opposite. She was like,
bro,
wow. She's like, man, that's so crazy, right? Can you imagine like a fungus taking us all out?
I feel like we were talking about this such a long time ago, though.
My wife was somewhere in the middle. She was like, yeah, we're like the three bears here. So yeah, where she was like super interested, then she was like TikTok, and then was like super interested again, which I was really proud of her. I love you, babe, but I was really proud of her. She paid attention the most for the show more than anything, so that already was a win for me. But yeah, back to your point, Drake, of it being real subtle. Like it was a nice way to introduce the concept of, hey, if this isn't a corporation that's going to do it, it isn't, just some magic of people being reanimated and becoming zombies. It's like, what if a fungi did it and and they give the scientific basis. I love that. It just like, that's something from the video games, which, shout out to Naughty Dog and the writer from that video game that came up with that in the first place. But still, the way they expanded upon it for the show was like, oh, this shit's going to be good.
That shit's real. That zombie fungus is a real thing. It takes over ants.
Right. And they brought that up.
And they brought that up. And it's like, I think we're zombie enthusiasts. We talked about how that would be a fun kind of way for it to be done long before Last of Us came out. But for it to finally come into fruition, I think is a full cyclical motion of like us coming to a more organic way that zombies have kind of taking place, origin story.
Yeah, you know what? Like, we have no way to prove this, but I swear we had this conversation in high school before The Last of Us was the thing, and you were like, oh, what if Spores did this? And yeah, it's crazy to see how big that concept is now, case in point, the show. But yeah, you're totally right. All the little details, too, of it being like the 60s with them smoking and the furniture and the giant ABC signs on the camera. All of that was like such nice detailing. And you can tell the host is trying to be this fun comedic host, but this concept and this idea and the topic is so heavy that there's like no way for him to spin it into anything really funny. And I love that. You're like, damn, okay. Because that right there shows like this is going to be, there's despair in this, and we can't laugh our way out of this. We can't put a positive spin out of this. It's going to be something that's heavy. I think that set the tone really, really well.
It reminded me of Watchmen when the doctor's talking about Dr. Manhattan on TV.
Yes.
Remember that scene?
Oh, yeah.
I don't exactly remember that scene, but I love that movie. What happens in that one scene?
It was similar to that. Like, he's explaining, like I don't know if you guys fully understand, like, what's happening here. Like, we have this guy who's basically a god, blah, blah, blah. And it was like that, like similar. They're on a talk show that you think might not. Yeah.
I know exactly.
It ended up being a heavier scene than what you think like people tuned in for.
Right.
And it reminded me of that.
Yeah, because his character and everything too, for sure. Mm-hmm. But then we break into the theme song, and right off the bat, I loved how you can see the fungus growing, and it's creating the city, and it's creating the zombie silhouette. And at the end, and while the biggest part, it's playing the theme song from the video game. I don't know if they changed it a little bit. So full disclosure, I started playing that game years after it came out, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't I wasn't super in love with it. I didn't finish it. So after I've went back and I've watched all the cutscenes and all that stuff. So just full disclosure, I didn't play and beat the whole game, but I'm very aware and very knowledgeable, I guess you could say, about the story. So that's where I'm coming from. But what did you guys think about just even that title sequence? Because I think HBO does a great job of making those title sequences and the songs and everything have so much detail and little tidbits about the show, even from Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. And now I think with this as well, there was a lot in there. Did you guys get the same kind of takeaway from it?
So conversely, I started playing the game after watching the show. So I know we talked about it, and I like zombie video games and things and such. And I know Scott's told me a million times, you're really gonna like the game, you should play the game. And then I kind of put it on the back burner. Sorry, Scott. And
you're not friends.
We're fucking Last of Us. So in watching the intro sequence to the game, and then having the game kind of bring its title in, very, very homage-y to the original content, like the way that the cordyceps is spreading across the screen, kind of the same way it did in the actual show. The opening sequences I thought were very, very similar. I mean, obviously they took a little bit of liberties here and there, but I thought it still was really, I don't want to say verbatim, but it was very if you've played the game, you know it's an homage. If you're trying to play the game and watching the show at the same time, you're like, oh, this makes sense of where we're going. And then it kind of gives you a little broader perspective of like, oh, I can see why these things took place, et cetera, et cetera.
What I love about what you're doing, not only will you be able to kind of tell the audience, you know, how you feel about it as it's happening on both, but also like you're going to be able to make almost real-time comparisons to the game and to the show, which is going to be dope. So definitely stick around and, you know, keep following us week to week to hear that, because I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Drake, while you're playing through it. So that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, the hardest part is going to get for me to, sorry to cut you off, Scott, but the hardest part is for me to going to get to how long are the episodes going to be, and then how far do I need to get to complete an episode, quote unquote.
Right.
Well, what you're gonna have to do is watch an episode and then jump into play.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna sleep Sunday nights.
yeah, exactly.
You're playing right into the podcast on Monday. No, but that's really cool because you'll get it pretty much in real time. I played the first game and the second game. The first game I haven't played for a long time. And I, to go back to like Christine watching the whole intro and everything as well, as she like the game is definitely good. Like, so when I used to play it, there were times where Christine's doing something and then she just like, it ended up turning into her like watching me play because like the story's so good.
Yeah.
And then there were times where she's like, say we're out doing something and she's like, oh, if we get back now, we probably have some time to play Last of Us if you want to play. So it ended up turning into a thing where we're like, okay, now we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like scouring for things, and she's like, you got to go over there. I'm like, yeah, I know, but there might be items. Like, I gotta build things. Like, she's like, yeah, but go, it's right there. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but you're not playing. Like, chill out.
But you are, babe. But you are.
Yeah, kind of like we're both playing the game, but like our own ways. Like, we're, it's just pretty hilarious. But
yeah,
I think because of that. There were definitely more. There's more information they gave in this intro versus the intro you get in the game,
right?
Which I like though, like the whole talking about the mushrooms and the spores, and then even time with his daughter. Like you get more of that in this show, and it makes sense because they want in the game. Like you get the love of the daughter throughout playing the game, and you don't. When you buy a game, you're not playing it for an hour and then waiting a whole week to play it again. So they can give you that storyline then, but for the first episode, they got to tell you like how important this daughter is to him and like how good of a person she was and like how different she's going to be from Ellie. Like all these things, they want you to care about this daughter because she gonna die. Right. And like if you played the game, and you watch the cutscene, so like she's gonna die, but you're like, oh my god, this is like it's gonna really hit me now because like they're making me really like this character. Like I don't want her to leave now.
Totally.
All the changes they did was great. So sorry, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. So and then we fast forward, we get to 2003, and we meet Sarah, right? Mm-hmm. And it's I think you did a great job of kind of explaining her character because she has an incredibly hard job for one episode, right? She has to make you kind of fall in love with her. Make you think she's this normal girl, kind of go through a day in the life with her, and then all of a sudden become, increasingly terrified, and then eventually, we're talking spoilers, and then die. And so it's like a really incredible job that I think that actress does. And she has a really famous mom. I'm trying to think of who it is. She used to date Tom Cruise, but while I'm looking for it, we'll come back to that. But she does an incredible job, I think, for that actress and being, I don't know how old she is. She looks maybe like...
Thandi. Okay, see, I freaking knew it. Okay, I didn't look it up till right now. But while watching, I'm like, she looks like she could be related to Thandi Newton, whatever, the one from... She's in a bunch of things. Westworld.
Yeah. That's one recently that she was in, and she did a fantastic job. But yes, she's related to her. And I was like, holy crap! I almost wish I didn't know that. But anyways, she does such a good job, and man, the acting chops definitely runs in the blood in that family.
So good.
So you're right. She does like this insane job, and you kind of slowly get to peel back what's going on in the world. Much like the game, and you guys can can attest to this. Like it all goes down on Joel's birthday, right? We get to see the little daughter wake up, and then she wants to make him breakfast, but he has nothing in there. He's talking about a job he has to do, and then Uncle Tommy then comes over, and we get to meet Gabriel Luna, who I loved from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He played a really badass Ghost Rider, and then who plays Uncle Tommy. And right there, which is cool, we know he's going to be a big character in the story going forward. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that initial part before she goes to school, or just that minor little interaction, or should we start getting... moving on.
Yeah, I do like the line with the she's like, I was gonna make pancakes, but we don't have anything for pancakes. And he's like, well, I don't even like pancakes. She's like, yeah, they were for me. And then the uncle comes over, he's like, I thought we were having pancakes. And it's like everyone wanted pancakes but him.
Right,
it's my birthday. It's just so funny.
That's great.
It was a great tidbit that I think that it was not in the game's initiation. Yeah. They elaborated a lot more, which gave a lot more depth, which I think they kind of needed to in order to kind of create that more character involvement, because you're not staying for the game, right? You're staying to continuously view this every Sunday. They did a director's cut towards at the end after the show, kind of like how they do it with Game of Thrones, and they kind of went into how Nico really had to she just lived that character, and I don't know, I don't know, it's kind of like you had to be there situation. She just did such a great job at being in that character, being super emotionally involved, and the director in himself was able to recreate this evocation that almost mimics you being her character as this is taking place in the game. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. So then we follow her through school, and I didn't catch this really the first time I watched it. I watched one of those breakdown videos, and I didn't realize that when she's in class, one of the kids watches, right? You kind of see it flashing on her face. It's the glare from the sun. And I didn't realize that was kind of a sign of somebody losing their motor ability, starting to watch them change. So I kind of missed that. Then we go, she takes money out of her dad's dresser along with his favorite watch and goes to get it fixed, right? Even that interaction was cool. Hey,
what a great kid.
Yeah, great kid. And just kind of just shows what kind of person she is, even though she's she says, I took your money. I could have took more, but I didn't. So yeah, just a good person all around. But that interaction of hey, it's going to cost $20. Oh, that's it. He's like, well, I could charge you 30. She's like, no, 20's fine. But then the wife comes in, and we can see the fire truck go by, and we can see his wife, the watch shop fixer's wife, come in and basically say we're closed for the day. We're done. And he's like, what are you talking about? We still have 3 hours to go. And you can slowly start seeing things are just falling apart behind the scenes. And maybe a kid wouldn't realize it, but us as adults start noticing these things where, oh fuck, something's happening, and just wait, girl, because it's about to get crazy.
Because even right when she goes outside, that barbecue that was happening next door, everyone's gone.
Oh,
I
didn't know.
There was a lot of people outside there, and then as soon as she comes out, the lady pulls down we're closed, and everyone's gone next door.
Wow,
it's just it's ghost town all of a sudden.
Yep,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
definitely.
The small little radio tidbits, the TV show that's on, that's being turned off, all those little audio cues as well too.
Yeah. She goes exactly. She goes from there to Mrs. Adler's house, and Mrs. Adler is making probably the second worst cookies of all time. Why wouldn't they be chocolate chip? But they're raisin. So
that's so funny. She's like, chocolate chip. Can we do this finally? She's like, no, raisin as always. Fun.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't really want to come over anyway. But that's where we first. I should say first, but you really start seeing something creepy as well, where there's that old lady kind of in the wheelchair. She's looking at the TV, and the dog is just staring at her. Yo, this bitch is tripping. Something was happening.
Yeah.
And then she goes home. She borrows the movie for her dad, and dad comes home. I love this scene, and I kind of wanted just to embellish on it because they said it was very much pulled right out of the game, where she's like, Dad, you said you were going to be home at 9 and it's 10. He's like, yeah, I know. She's like, did you at least bring the cake? He's like, no, I'll get one tomorrow. And then she's like, okay, fine. If you promise you'll get one tomorrow, I'll give you your present. Right. And she gives him the watch. I don't know. I just thought that was so well done. And when you look at those videos of side by side to the cutscene of the game and the show, like the dialogue is almost like word for word the same, which I loved. I thought that was so awesome, and it works. Works so well in it. Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts there?
I think the watch portion is very underrated in terms of the relationship building. Not only is he a single dad, and we don't know about the mom, but the daughter, who is 12, goes out of her way, which a 12-year-old wouldn't do, to give her father to fix that watch, which we assume has some sort of like evocation of emotion, because why else would you keep a watch that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So now we have that semblance between potentially the gift of a wife, and now all of the emotional weight is being put on this watch, right? So she goes to go get it fixed. These things start to happen. The watch is being given as a gift, and later on we see that he continues to wear the watch post a lot of other things happening, and that I think that moment stayed what it was because of how heavy and how weighty, how meaningful that watch is throughout the rest of the series, the game, etc.
Right, but yeah, like I do like their dialogue too. Like you also get the impression that she's a young kid who had to grow up quickly and is almost like a partner to him. Like she's helping. She's like, hey, I know you're working hard, but like, hey, like this birthday, it's an us thing. Like you promised cake, dude. Like we, like, it's almost like you're like not his wife, but like we're a team now. Like reminding him, like, hey, you got to do this. Like you're the adult, blah blah. So I did like that aspect. And then even at the end, where with the movies, like, you're not gonna fall asleep, are you? She's like, no. And it's like, and then it's funny because like everyone can relate to that.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I almost thought he was gonna be sleeping too. Like, because that's how it normally turns out. Like, Christine and I put on something and we both knock out. But he's just, still awake. But I did like that whole interaction.
I know. That's why I was surprised you watched like 4 movies this weekend. I was like, how did you not fall asleep through that? But no, that part was all great. Then we is it that night? He finds out Tommy gets arrested, right? He goes to go pick him up, which is different than the game, I think, right? It's a different reason.
Yeah.
So he goes to pick up Tommy. He's gone. She wakes up in the middle of the night and she can hear all these explosions going off and crazy lights and helicopters flying over the house, and she stumbles out of the house.
The dog comes to the door, right? That's why.
Yeah. The dog comes to the window. Door. Yeah, comes to the window.
That stressed me out, man.
Did it? Was that part?
I was like, what? She was like trying to bring the dog back, and I'm like, okay, so you're gonna go home now, right? And then it just escalates, and I'm like, when are you gonna go home? Are you not dumb?
Like, okay, I do have to say, like, when of course the dog's like, I don't want any part of it. So it's like, okay, I was like, the door's open. You shout the name. If they don't come, and you hear rustling, and you shout again, and you hear more rustling, they don't come. I'm like, sounds like a break-in. You call 911, you get the fuck out. Like, don't go in the house.
What the fuck? Like, she goes in the house.
She's also young. Kids make
big
other
facts
decisions.
Yeah, I was like, even when she grabbed the dog, I'm like, yeah, grab the dog and just turn around and go back in the house and just call the police. That's where I would have been out.
Especially when the TV's like, stay in.
Yeah, exactly. But like, okay, yeah, even when she got to the neighbor's door, if you are shouting the name that many times, you don't walk in. Granted, I get it. It's probably like a small town and everybody knows each other. It's probably one of the safest neighborhoods. Maybe nobody locks their door in this town. But I'm telling my kid, like, hey, you go to someone's door, you yell out their name. If they're not there, you don't break in like Drake.
No.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But like, so that's where I would have been out. And then, she goes back in the house. I want to say after. No, she runs out of there, and Joel and Tommy pull up in the truck and are like, "Baby girl, get in the car." Now, this is the part where I really was like, "Get in the goddamn car!" When she was not moving and like she was just staring. And
she literally just saw the neighbor. The old lady eating, like, bit the old guy, eating
and
the guy,
with like
and then got
tentacles coming out of her mouth.
Yeah, and then he pulls up, get in the car, and then he has his gun or his bat. What did he have?
He had a wrench. A wrench.
He had a wrench.
Oh, and then he knocks the neighbor out. She's still standing, and then he drops the wrench. And I'm like, never drop a weapon. Like, bro, it helped you once. It'll probably help you again.
It's made out of metal.
Good point. Life pro
And
tips.
But it's fine. I mean, he's anxiety's going. You gotta go. Like,
the old man who was dying was like, "Help me," and I'm like, "Bro, just tell her go away. What is she gonna do? Lift your fat ass up? Like, what are we talking about?"
That's where it's crazy. Where it's like the neighbor, like comes out and he's like, "Get back in the house, lock the door," and then he drives, hits the neighbors, and like, "Joe, what the hell are you doing?"
Right.
Tries to help the neighbor, and you just see them get eaten in the background. You're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
Yeah.
it's like War of the Worlds feeling. You're just like, "Fucking everyone's dead now."
Yeah,
like,
everyone's imploding, and I think they do a good job of just that panic, right? And now we're on the part there. They even get to the signs on the road. That was exactly from the game. They pass by that burning house. They don't have the exact same dialogue there, right, Drake? It's a little different, but the house in general is the same.
It's pretty funny because in the game they don't. Well, they have a similar dialogue. Oh, that's Bill's house.
Yeah,
that's whatever's house. Hope he got out. Right. In the game, it's on the right side. In the show, it's on the left side.
Yeah.
But it's still a burning house with a fence and kind of a big field. It was. I was interested in the contrast.
Must have been the only place they could have filmed it from like one direction. They're like, okay, we gotta just do it this way and this stretch. But yeah, they pass by that other family and they're like, they have a kid, Joel, and he's like, so do we. Keep flying by that family. Oh my god. And this is like anxiety level is already at a 10 for me. This is like, holy shit, everything's, and then no, I think this is where it hits a 10. This is at a 9 here. Where it hits a 10 is they are about to go on the off ramp on the highway and there's just nothing but traffic. I was like, oh my god, that
LA town.
Yeah, in Texas.
And did you guys do this too? Like anytime it starts going to this mode, I'm simultaneously feeling the like pressure and anxiety from like, oh, if I'm really there, and then I'm like, shoot, if I was there, what would I do? Oh, I'd do this. Okay, that's good. Oh yeah, see, this is why you need a truck. I was like, if I lived there, I'd have a truck. Like, I don't even have a truck now, but I'm like, I would definitely get a truck if I lived in Texas. Just off road, you might have to do off roading. You might need to get, it's just so funny. Like my brain is like,
which is funny. Which is what I was telling Christina. I was like, this is why every guy's dad wants a truck in case there's a zombie apocalypse. Yeah, they're like, ask them to move anything. They're never around, but you know what? Yeah, I have that truck in case a zombie apocalypse hits. That's exactly
I checked my go bag after this show.
yeah.
So we get into the town, all hell breaking loose. I like this detail just from my background in aviation that all the planes were kind of flying in a straight line and it looked like they had nowhere to go, which was my thought instantly was like, nobody's in the control tower telling them how to get down or who's landing. So they were probably just going and just like, okay, can we land? Because you need clearance. So I was thinking these guys are probably like, okay, we're literally on the approach. We haven't gotten anybody to tell us like, are we clear to land? So they're probably all just circling, just overshooting the runway until like, and that has
until
to be
someone is infected on the thing, right?
Yeah, until someone maybe is infected on the plane or whatever. But I was like, man, anxiety was at like 1,000 already, and everybody's breaking out in the streets, much like the game. But I thought in some ways when I was looking at the gameplay footage and the show recently, I thought they did a better job in a sense of like all those people running at the truck and then him and Joel saying, reverse. We got to do, and that was all great. Yeah. We get the miss because in the game, there was a psych out in the show basically where in the game, a truck T-bones them and that's how the truck gets flipped over. But in this, what happens in this? The plane crashes, right? And then they flip over, and that's why. Yeah. So that was,
and then like an ambulance hits them.
Oh, was it that?
Starts a fire on their truck after they disperse, and that's why.
And then they separated.
They separate.
They split. They're like, meet me by the river.
Yeah. They separate, and she can't walk. Joel's carrying her, and man, as he's getting chased through that place, oh fuck, I was just it's scary. Scared all around for them. And then we get to the scene which ultimately changes everything for Joel moving forward, where he runs into the soldier and he's like, she's not injured. She's not one of them. We're not infected. And the guy's like, basically like, nope, just stay right there. And I don't know, you can feel free to jump in at any point, but he tries to take her he tries to like move forward and just tell him, hey, we're okay. And then the soldier just open fires on it or gets a message.
Well, that's why he's like, you start seeing like now the soldiers are getting these like orders that they're like, wait, what?
Right.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
like, okay.
Initiate Order
like,
66.
I have to shoot you now. Yeah, it's like crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then yeah.
They traded out the pistol for I think a rifle, which I would prefer, just because the rifle headshot wise would have gone through all of that helmet and Kevlar more efficiently than a regular pistol would.
Or you mean like Tommy's rifle?
Yeah, Tommy's rifle is a pistol in the game.
Okay, got it.
I think
so it makes more sense from the show standpoint. Is that
it makes more sense from the show standpoint, from like a realistic standpoint, just because
Gotcha.
A military person being snuck up on by a single person with a pistol, when you have these two essentially civilians in front of you, he shoots both of them. They roll down. I mean, everything was almost the same aside from those small details. And then Tommy and Joel kind of seeing what happened to his daughter, and it's just like that whole moment encompassed like just immediately me saying, wow, this is a fucking bummer. Like everything that you just saw, like how good of a kid she is, how willing she was to kind of help her dad be the best he could be and support him, be his partner, et cetera, et cetera. And then you see when he was trying to protect her by carrying her through all of this like muck, whether that's people or fire, et cetera, and then her wanting to go after and save Uncle Tommy, to go back for him when they got separated from the cars. To have this happen was just so out of left field. If you've never played the game, you've never watched the show, like this moment's probably going to make you cry.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Pedro's like such a great freaking actor. Like him, like wailing over his daughter is like, oh my god, heart wrenching.
Yeah.
And when I played that, when I played the game for the first time, like, oh, this is like, it looks like it's gonna be a fun game. Just that intro, like getting to that, and then like the daughter dies, it's like boom, and it's like The Last of Us, and like the game starts. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You're like, you're like, this is cool. This game's gonna be nuts. Like, what a way to pull you into the game. And like, I'm glad they kept that same feel and like put it on this show. Like, I know you sent that meme about people everywhere watching, like who watched Halo, was like, and then watched this show and was like, this could have been Halo. Like, Halo could have been good. I don't know why they but
they could have pulled right from the source material. Totally. Yeah, they did such a good job. And again, to that actress, whatever
Nico Williams.
Man, she did a great job too of just like
Nico Parker, sorry.
Yeah, like simulating that she's dying. Oh my god. So we are now 20 years later. We're in 2023, and we're at the prison, and like obviously shit's hit the fan. The world's a completely different place than it was, and there's now containment zones, right? And Joel now lives in this containment zone, and you could tell it's a completely different Joel. I mean, even as those bodies are coming in, and he's just like chucking them in the fire, and that kid. We get to see this kid who's kind of hobbling. He kind of looks like Tarzan, but with better clothes. And then he gets, you think that everything's going to be good. They're like, hey, you'll get all the food and toys you ever want. And then you could see his shoes that are in the back of the truck of, where his body is. And Joel is just chucking him in there like, no problem. Like he's cold, he's callous, he's lost kind of a lot of his humanity that he had, back when he had a daughter. And it was just a really kind of powerful way already to see the transition there, and that this whole world just works under different circumstances, right?
Yeah. The juxtaposition of like The Last of Us being literal and figurative, The Last of Us, literally the people there who are the last of the human beings who have been alive, and The Last of Us as in the people within us who can live in the society of now kind of like, left, and now it's just a soulless type person to an extent,
right?
Based off of what we saw from Joel's actions.
Yeah, like the last of our humanity.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, no, totally, I get that. Yeah, Scott, did you have something to add?
No, it was just interesting now. Like he's just like, he's just a different person now, right? Like he had no, like the lady was like, I can't do it, and he's like, I got it. Picked up the boy, threw him in the fire. Like he's just a different person now. Like life is like beating him. He does have a mission. He has that like his own goal, which we find. He's trying to get that battery, and he's like, he's got his own thing. But for now, he's like, I'm just gonna do whatever it takes. just keep my head down and like get it fucking done.
Get it done. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We see that he's also doing something else on the side. He's working, he's selling these pills, or he's going out and what do you call it? Like he's almost like raiding outside or different places. He's kind of like a mule. And so he gets pills, he gets ammunition, I guess, or is that in the game? It might be in the game, but anyways, he's selling pills to the Phaedra agent, and I'm not exactly sure what that stands for, but yeah, that guy obviously seems a little like a junkie, but is kind of warning him about the fireflies, which we see a firefly symbol getting painted up. And yeah, even for him, whether you're an agent or a person inside, agents seem like they have it a little bit better, but at the same time, you could possibly be blown up by a firefly insurgent or whatever you want to call him. And then he's just trying to rack up as many of those ration tokens as he can to buy the car to then get to his brother, right? And the cool thing is we see that line of everybody trying to go in and talk to that guy who has probably the only radio and some of the only maps. And that guy, I guess, that Pedro Pascal talks to was actually the original voice of Tommy. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I like that they use like some of the original voices, and we'll jump there, but we get to see at the end, like one of the other characters was the lady, was the original voice for the game. She talks about auditioning for it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. That was really cool.
Well, Drake kind of said it.
The one thing I think that the show did better was give a lot more context as it pertains to the world. In the game, you essentially they go from an altercation, figuring out why they have to smuggle something, and then they just go do it. In this, when you were talking about him kind of getting the Phaedra agent the drugs, we learned that in this world, there is a facility that makes only essentially drugs and bullets, right? So that's now we understand that the Phaedra in general, the military dictatorship, is creating this sort of civilization and sustaining it by whatever kind of labor they're using to create these drugs and create these ammunition. So a lot deeper of a cut, and I think even higher stakes, because if the entity that's protecting you is the only thing that's really creating anything to protect you, they're protecting you, and they're protecting like your mental by giving you drugs. Like that's a way darker connotation, more in the lines of Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, for sure. It's like complete fascism and control, right? Because they're controlling your mental and they're controlling your safety. It's like, that's complete control. So yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense, right? And then so from there, we run into Tess, and Tess, I think our first introduction to her, I don't know what it is in the game, Drake, but our first introduction to her is with these kind of, I don't know, like gangsters in a way, like hoodlums. I don't know what you want to call them, but they're not the most intelligent guys, right? They're like, we're so sorry we had to do that to you. Like, we needed that battery. But then she's like, wait, so you stole it from me just so you could like sell it to someone else and then steal it from them? Like, that doesn't make
Don't tell Joel.
Yeah. They're like, don't tell Joe. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have done that. So they already, like, Joe already has a reputation in this world. And also, like, these guys do not seem like the sharpest tools in the shed.
I like that she's tough too, though, because she's like, dude, let's just fucking get this over with. Let me get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Like, whatever, dude. Like, you're below me. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? Kill me?
You're right.
It's like, well, we can't let you go. What are we doing here?
You're right.
Like, just let me the fuck go. Like, all right, yeah, you're right. Like, she's the one being beat up and stuff, but she still held all the power, which I liked. I'm like, this lady's a badass.
That's true.
They did a much better job in the show of creating a little bit more tension in the game. Tess and Joel are going to meet this character, and you have to fight through essentially all of his men to get to him, to find out that he sold Tess and Joel guns, and he sold them to somebody else. So it's a very similar kind of line, but with this, you get introduced to a character who you will recognize in terms of the game, but then immediately not give a fuck about him in terms of like if you haven't watched the if you haven't played the game, right? You care enough about him to know that he's important, but you automatically want him to die because he's a bad dude, right? So that was interesting.
Yeah, that guy that stole the stuff. They name him in the show and in the game,
Charlie,
right? I think so. That
something.
sounds about right. Something like that. But yeah, that's great. I think they did a good job. And it was like, why breathe more life into that character when we need to establish Tess and Joel's relationship, who she is, and all that. So I think they did a good job. And then also trying to make what they steal important to why Joel works so hard. Like, I need this battery because I can put it in the truck, and then if I can get to the truck, I can go find my brother, and if I can find my brother, like, everything's gonna be fine. So all that stuff is really great. Tess and Joel reconnect, and they track down, I think, where the battery is. They go down into the sewer systems, and this is where we first get to see one of the bodies fully taken over by the cordyceps and stuck to the wall. That looks incredible. Like, it looks really good, like pulled from the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then in the second game, I don't remember this happening in the first game, so maybe it did. It's just I played the second game like more recent. But in the second game, you'll run into guys like that, and then like they'll just rip themselves off the wall and like start running at you.
Oh, that's spooky.
So I was like, that was something they introduced in the second game. But you know that would have meant it like existed all along, though, right? Because it's not like they've evolved to that in such a short time. But I was like, oh, are they gonna like do that already,
right?
Or is he just dead? So that might be something we see later. Like, but the makeup and stuff on that was like, just like
good.
Right out of the game. I was like, so good.
In the first game, they come to a door to get to the underground, and they have to pull one of those cordyceps off of the door in order to get into it. But I think they did it in this fashion in the show to show you like the depth of the seriousness of what happens to you when you're taken over by this fungus. Like, talk about a return to Earth. It completely engulfs you at a point in time. So yeah, it was epic
for sure. Yeah,
part of the crew.
That's right. All right, so let's try to wrap it up real quick because there is a question I want to ask you about similar that's on the lines about that. But we are finally brought back in. At this point, we've also already met Ellie, right? She's been chained to, a heater pipe, and she's being detained by the Fireflies. We've already met Marlene, who Drake, you said was also interesting enough. She's one of the only actors in the game that got to portray the character that she was in the game. Like, she got to portray it in the show, which she was also in the game. And so that was super cool. I think her name is like Marley or something in real life. But Merle, that's what it is. But Marlene, great character and just a total badass. But we've already seen Ellie tell them they're like trying to do those basic kind of tests for, okay, give us count to 10, what's your name? And she's like, I've already done this for you guys. Like, how many times do you want me to do this? And she like, and if you haven't played the game, you're like, why do they keep probably testing this girl? She seems fine, or maybe you understand, like, maybe she was just bitten, but it was at this point that she tells them it's been 3 weeks. Cause I feel like she already tells them.
Yeah. She says it in that thing where she's like, yeah, hold my arm up. She's like, it's been this many days already.
Oh, been this many days. That's right. Yeah.
I think it was like 5 days or something.
She's like, I would have turned if it was in, like I would have already turned by now if it was a day, or like in 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. So we meet Marlene there. She's obviously a badass part of the team. Now, fast forward again, Joel and Tess are in the apartment or whatever. They're climbing back up. They push Charlie over. He's got bullet holes in him, and the battery is like completely fried. Like, it's not useful anymore. They turn down a hallway and they see Marlene and one of her lieutenants, I guess, for the Fireflies. And Marlene's shot in the stomach. Right. This is where we kind of get our first introduction to Ellie meeting Joel. What are you guys' thoughts on this scene?
I think, like we talked about the juxtaposition of like his original daughter and the differentiation that Elle represents, and not just in the character, but in like what now he has to do. He really kind of has to be there for her now because he wasn't necessarily there for her before, right? And then the daughter, Elle, is so different from his daughter in terms of she's a little bit more crass. She's a lot more active. She's a lot more aggressive. Maybe not as sweet in that sense. One of the funniest moments when they were originally meeting was when Marlene was talking to her lieutenant, and she was like, "Well, you shut the hell up. You ain't got an ear on your head."
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah,
and they
like,
show
what the
her
fuck?
ear.
I know, and I was like, "What the hell?"
But
what a badass.
yeah.
What a
No,
badass, by the way.
Go. Yeah.
The yeah, what a badass. She doesn't even know. Bella Ramsey, the girl, the young lady who plays Ellie. Dude, she's so good. I know we saw her in Game of Thrones, but like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad
Lady
she is
Marmont.
Ellie. Yeah. She's like, for such a little person, like she demands like so much, like respect,
Presence.
and like presence, and like you fear that character. Like even her with her knife, like that was a funny exchange where she's trying to reach for her knife and Joel's just stepping on it, like, dude, what the fuck, like, like you can tell they're both alphas, and he's like, dude, like take it easy, little person.
Like, yeah.
Like, do my knife, like, it's great.
It was very reminiscent of like Wolverine and X-23 and Logan.
Yeah,
you know, like they're both like they're both kind of feral and rough, but it makes sense why Ellie is the way she is. I mean, she's never grown up in a world that didn't have the cordyceps zombies. She's only grew up in the containment zone, so like this type of lifestyle and dirtiness and all this stuff is probably all she knows. So like that part of it too was like, whoa, badass. Plus, like there's a weird tie-in where Sarah picked up Joel's knife in the house before his birth or on his birthday when she was grabbing the money. And then now Ellie has this knife. So I don't know. I made that connection. I don't know if there's something there, but it just kind of seemed like a way to portray how this is kind of like the second version of his daughter, or could be the second version.
Parallels for sure.
Right. So, we get the mission where Marlene's like, basically, you need to bring this girl to, you know, this location to meet up with these different Firefly people, whoever they are. And of course, Joel and Tess are reluctant, but you know, she finds a way. I forget what is in it for them to do the deal, but they reluctantly say yes. Right. I don't know. Can you guys remember what they get?
Yeah. They promise, Marlene promises them the same things that they were originally going to pick up and more.
And more. That's right. Okay. Yep. She's like done. So they take Ellie. They stay overnight somewhere. She's sitting in the window and says, "You mumble in your sleep," which is a line right out of the video game.
Right out of the game. Yep.
Yeah. They eventually decide to go that night. Tess comes back. They're sneaking out of a pipe. Another line right out of the video game. She goes, "Oh my gosh!" They're like, "We're outside. Like I've never been outside the wall before."
And then they almost get caught like idiots.
Right. But this time it's different, right? In the show, it's the same guard that Joel sold drugs to earlier. In the game, it's two random guards.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I like this addition. We even get like, you know, he starts, we're going to do this by the book. He starts recording all of them. Ellie stabs him and it points the gun at Ellie, and Joel steps in front and basically
PTSD.
Yeah.
He relives the moment, and he's like, basically, Tobey Maguire, or not Tobey Maguire, what's his name?
Tobey Maguire.
Remember when he gets to save, he gets to like relive the moment and do it right this time. And that's what he gets. I'm not gonna let my daughter die again.
Yeah.
He just beats this guy to death.
Yeah.
With his knuckles.
I think the show does a better job because you've already established a relationship with the security guard and Joel. So now Joel has to now overcome that like kinship to an extent, in order to defeat him, to save Elle, someone he doesn't fucking know, but reminds him solely of his daughter.
Yeah.
So way more heavy.
Absolutely. Yep. And then they go through a gate and we hear the noise of the clickers as a storm rolls in through the city, this overgrown, dilapidated city. And we're ready for episode 2. So, I think that was a pretty great job recapping. My question to you guys who have both played the game, or Drake who's currently playing it, is how do you feel about them not having the spores to worry about and the mass? I know that it's been like kind of a point of contention for some people online. How do you guys feel about it?
I think they can introduce a little bit of it, but I think the reason why they're not doing that is for the opposite reason why they showed so much of Master Chief's face in Halo, is that you want to kind of continuously keep the emotional connection with the characters because they do a lot of facial work. Whereas in Halo, we wanted the opposite of that. But I think with the spores you put on the mask and then now you kind of take away kind of that emotion work. I hope they show the spores because I mean, like, you know, how are people going to get infected just by biting people? I mean, the whole thing was the fact of you can get infected by spores, and you can get infected by if they bite you. So I don't know, Scott. What do you think?
I'm thinking they're probably they'll probably introduce a bit of that. I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, figure out a way to show their face more, right? Because they're also paying them for their face. Like, that's what's bringing in the audience. But there will probably be scenes where they're like, this room is like fully contaminated. Put this on. And like that'll be like a nod to the game, whether they do it more than once or whatnot. I'm sure they'll probably touch on it, but it hasn't really bothered me just yet because there are parts in the game where like you're not always wearing the mask, you know,
right?
Because if that were the case, like you'd always be wearing it. So
yeah,
they're outside a lot. So yeah,
cool.
My bigger question was for those who have played the game, where do you think the second episode is gonna start and end? Because are we going to get introduced to a new character, or are we going to go through the situation of having to kind of funnel through this very scary, very condensed in terms of space situation?
Yeah, because I know in the game the next part is like because I'm trying to remember when it just gets to him and Ellie.
Yeah, isn't it? Because at some point Tess has to. Well, I don't know how.
Do some stuff.
Yeah, Tess has to do some stuff. And then they meet those two brothers, right? They meet the two black brothers. And, like, is that the next part? Or do you think that's, like, an episode 3 thing?
I think the next part is, like, they're going to go in that building that they were looking at. You know, that one that's tilted over. Because there's a part in the game where you're, like, traversing through. And that's when they teach you about, like, in the game, you can do the thing where like you can kind of go into this listening mode. So you can kind of see through walls. You can hear where they are because they can only hear you. So that's when they teach you like say crouch around a thing, throw the bottle. They'll go there. You can kind of stand in front of them as long as you don't make noise, and you can use your shiv like that sort of thing. So it's probably just gonna be that because they showed a little bit of that in the teaser, right? Where like they're literally right on the other side of the wall, and they're like quiet, you know, and stuff. So. I don't know where it's gonna end though. It's been so long since I played the first game. I kind of forget the chapters. Right. But yeah, at least the beginning will be that.
Yeah, from what I know, this season will end right where part 1 and the original DLC ends. So yeah, for those who don't know, downloadable content, which is basically like an expansion pack, if you will, for video games. But yeah, so I think that's where this season will end. So we'll still have. It's
gonna cover the game then.
Yeah, so it covers that game and the DLC. So yeah, So you're gonna have to play fast, Drake.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other questions. Any questions? So if not, off to a fantastic start. Like it's like got a 10 out of 10 for me right now. As far as like the start of a premiere. Most shows do though. If you go back and listen to our episodes, like I'm always pretty high on shows right off the bat. So if it can carry it all the way through, we'll see. But I believe that this one will. One thing we didn't talk about, last thing I'll say about it is just the way it's shot. It feels like an HBO show. Like,
agree.
Yeah, you know, I kept making the comparison on a different show to The Walking Dead, and probably unfairly, but in some ways, like The Walking Dead's first episode gave me this feeling in a lot of ways of like, oh shit, I've never seen anything like this. What would you do? What, you know, I'm nervous for the characters. Like everything feels hopeless, but that feeling with an HBO budget and the way it's shot, like that's where I'm at with this. So it's incredible for me. Yeah, guys.
The blending of like what's CG and what's like practical is like done really well. Like you almost can't tell, you know, like what is practically done and what's CG. So like, because even when they show like the city that they're walking into, it's like rainy, the buildings toppled, like it looks realistic. So
totally,
it's that HBO budget, man.
Yeah, and I was gonna make because I was also watching Alice in Borderland recently too, and even though that looks pretty damn good, and their budget was probably also really good, it still doesn't look like the Last of Us budget.
No.
You know, and that's
HBO looks cinematic.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Drake, any final thoughts on Last of Us?
Watch it. Do it now.
Definitely.
Agree.
Yeah, and
10 out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, tell us what you guys thought. Like, hit us up on Instagram or Twitter, or just like, yeah, email us. Tell us what you thought about episode 1 of The Last of Us and where you think it's going to go. If you played the game, what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show based on the game, all that stuff. So, any of that information, we're fully on board. We would love to hear from you guys. So, the next bit of topic for tonight is, we kind of just mentioned. Yeah, I think it is Alice in Borderland season 2. Dude,
Nice.
this show was a mind fuck, and I don't know how else to describe it for the finale.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. Drake, you did such a good job of talking about it last week without spoiling anything or like alluding to me. You're like, oh, there's a Joker. And I'm like, when does the Joker happen? I kept waiting for it, waiting for the fucking Joker. And I was like, where does this Joker come in? I'm like, they beat the game. Just that final scene. Episode 7 was crazy because the King of Clubs, or was it King of Spades? I'm pretty sure it's King of Clubs. He's invincible.
Oh,
and
Spades.
Spades. Sorry, Spades.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he was decimating everybody. And when he takes down,
I have stuff to say about that whole scene.
Yeah, I mean, I like the season. It got a little slow for me, I will say, in the middle. But you get to episode 7, and things are starting to pick up again. The crew from the beginning is kind of back together for the most part. And you're like, yes, team power. They're going to mess him up. Like, it's all going to go well. That guy destroys their team. Only Odesu is left. And he just, oh my gosh. I was not expecting everybody to die that gruesomely. Like, Akane, the one who has the prosthetic leg, I mean, he just tears a hole in the middle of her with his machine gun. He messes up Agune. He stabs Kunia, I think is her name, who has the dreads. Man, he just like that fight. There was numerous times where I was like, oh, like, could not believe he was messing up that bad.
What's his name? Oh my god, not Deadshot. DC's Deadpool. What's his name? Slade.
Oh,
He was basically
Deathstroke.
He's Deathstroke. But there were definitely moments where I'm like, this choreography, I don't know who did it. Like, certain parts just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I guess it's just like the movie. Like, everyone takes days to die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were just certain like what's her name? The guy, the lady with the prosthetic leg.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she got machine gun shot right up her body. She should have died like right away. She lived like one of the longest. Like,
I know.
And then there was this. What's her name? Usagi. I was like, you're like supposed to be so athletic, but like when you ran over to help late, of course, like you could have helped earlier, but you let your friend get stabbed, and then you jumped over, and then you were doing like these stupid, not even hammer punches, to the point where the guy just let you on his back while he's fucking up everybody else. He's like, you ain't doing shit, so I'm just gonna let you stay up there. I was like, there was just certain things. I'm like, what? Like, I get certain things were definitely really cool, but I'm like, he also has a gun. He could have went boom, 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 boom.
Right.
On the leg, boom.
Yes.
Or like, and then of course things are over exaggerated, like the super dodge last minute. But there were just certain things where like the like you see your friend getting fucked up. You're all dead at this point. Go over there and help. Why are you taking so long? Like those moments where I'm like, it could have been written a little tighter.
Yes.
But of course, the other parts where he's dodging bullets, like I'm also chalking it up to like he's Jason level bad guy. Like, you know, like he's almost supernatural, but you guys got to step it up. Like that, I was more disappointed with the main cast. I'm like, don't just like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
like, but it was really cool.
I just didn't expect them to get messed up that bad. But you're right. Some of the choreography, like I don't know how they would like do something, shoot, and then like have enough time to be like, and like dodge out of the way. I'm like, you better make every shot count because this guy was murdering hundreds of people in this show.
I was also disappointed with Bow and Arrow Girl. I'm like, aim for the head. Like you're supposed to be really good with that thing.
Yeah.
You were shooting like
once,
the
maybe
in the side.
Yeah, in the bulletproof vest part, and he like tore it off.
Yeah. Also, he is a badass, but I'm like, get another one ready. She shot it and was like waiting.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing?
I know.
It was the person who wrote that choreography. But again, though, there was a lot of cool parts in that. Like, and overall, I did like this season. It was pretty awesome, and definitely a mindfuck.
Totally right. So that was just what I had to say about episode 7 because it really did make me gasp a few times. I was like, holy shit, did not see that coming. But also, yes, the fight choreography could have been way tighter. So then we get into the final game, right? It's only Asuge and Arisu left, and they've already been forming this relationship through the season. And we get to the final game, which is just like croquet, and with the Queen of Hearts, and yeah, it takes you on this mind-bending, like, I guess my thing was, were you guys, I was also like, ooh, this is a really interesting idea, like 1,000 years in the future, like, whoa, I've never heard of anything like, and the way she was describing it, like, we've eradicated disease, and then there's no need for anybody to work, and like all these things, and it was like, oh shit, wow, this is super cool and well thought out, and she's like, psych, I was like, oh, okay, got us, yeah, that was good, and then she goes into another crazy explanation, like, well, aliens abducted us, and now you're just in a simulation, whatever, and I was like, oh, that's crazy, and then she was like, psych. And I was like, bitch, if you do that again, like, I'm going to jump through the TV and I'm going to kill you with a croquet myself. Like, this is ridiculous.
I bet you, because it's based on like a manga, right? Like, I'm sure at this point, the writer and everything was like getting like, I bet you this is how, like, they're reading, right? Like, I bet you this is the ending. I bet you this is the ending. And they probably picked the best endings that could have been, and was like, yeah, I'm going to give you that and take it away. Like, to be like, yeah, like, still psych you out. So you're definitely not going to predict the ending. I'm going to like wear you down to the point where you're like, whatever, dude, just give me an ending now. I'm done trying to predict it. Yeah. Which was cool though, because it was getting me too. I was like, oh fuck, they're like in a VR thing and they're like a couple. I'm like, this is like that Rick and Morty episode where they play like the game of life and they live their life. And then it wasn't that. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And I was going through the same thing as you, like, fuck. And then also Usagi's like, don't listen to her. And I'm like, yeah, fucking don't listen to her.
Yeah, I'm like, why does he? I was thinking, I'm like, why does he keep talking to her? Like, stop it. Just finish the last game. All you can do is finish the last game. Why are you doing this? She literally said. But yeah, like, it was, and what was really good about how they psyched you out was they decided to do the VFX for them in the simulation. So there's like special effects where you're like seeing them spin around and you're like, oh, I guess this is real. And then you also see the same game master, like the Queen of Hearts, like come in and talk to the screen from the end of last season. So you're like, oh, maybe that's real. They did a good job. I as much as I loved it, I also hated it at the same time.
Also, again, like, I did feel for Usagi because she's like, motherfucker, I'm bleeding out.
Yes.
Like, fucking finish this game. Stop fucking listening to her.
Right.
Like, you make like we have all the time in the world. I'm dying.
Yeah. And then convinces him in the psych ward, and then she has to cut her wrist to then get his attention again. Yeah. It was like, what? What?
What are we doing? Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Super stressful. The opposite of what Arisu in general was like fighting for, right? And it to me, it didn't like match the purpose. Like, it didn't seem like he lost his purpose throughout the whole thing. And then even more so when the ending kind of comes through, you're like, well, that's interesting in general overall.
Right.
But yeah.
Because it seemed, yeah, you're right. And then, so we get the realization that it was a meteor that came in and everybody was on the borderland of life, right? Between life and death.
Yeah.
And
basically limbo.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to think about when they were in the room and she was like, you're crazy or whatever, you're on drugs and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, how does this relate to like the actual like Alice in Wonderland? But what an interesting way to look at Wonderland as in the borderland and all these horrific things. But I guess like in a way it kind of works. It was so crazy in a sense too. I don't know. I didn't know how I felt about it. I still feel conflicted. And, we get the final how did you guys feel about that? You get the whole meteorite explanation.
I mean, I think it was meh. Okay, sure. Right. And then okay, sure, because then now the connection between all the people, I guess that kind of makes sense. And then it kind of takes you to that fairy tale situation, and you see that in the beginning shot, right? As in almost the last shot, you see all of these characters that you see passing Arisu or within the same situation into which got them to this particular place and blah, 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 blah. At the same point in time, it almost it was fine, and it seemed like it makes sense. But at the same time, if you think about it a lot, like, does it really make sense?
Yeah. Like, to me, the simulation makes way more sense. Or the 1,000 years, or like the aliens and these rich people who are underground, like making these games to entertain themselves makes way more sense.
Yeah. I really think it was like a Ryan Johnson situation where it's like, oh, you want this to happen? I'm gonna fucking write something else.
Right.
Like, and with this kind of thing, it is hard to get a satisfying ending. Like some things are like way easier to come up with a cool concept, but harder to make it make sense in the end. Especially like it's like what I've heard about some of Stephen King's books. Like a lot of them really like it up until it gets sometimes a little too sci-fi because he's over explaining like this is what it. Some people didn't like and then it's an alien and a thing and then you're like I just liked when it was like a weird demon we didn't know too much about.
Right.
So it is hard to give a satisfying ending.
That's true.
And I bet you people were predicting it and they're like, well, we can't make it too easy now because that's what everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if this matches the manga. Like if this is how it ends in the manga. Because if it does. Like,
so I went ahead and like found it.
Oh,
the
really?
manga because I was like, oh, maybe there's more. Like I want to read season 3 already because I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it turns out like there is, as from what I saw, there really isn't one. Like the Joker is there was like a being, like the shadowy figure talking to him that was pretty much playing the character of Queen of Hearts in this.
Okay.
Like explaining things and stuff. And then at the end there is that Joker card. So like he was supposed to be the Joker.
Oh, okay.
And then it kind of just is open-ended. So anything after this I think is just going to be like their own story. Well actually there's like spin-offs that they did.
Okay.
Like there's another character they go and then I guess Arisu has to go back in. So it's like a lot of like I guess it was they liked it so they just made more for it. But this story feel like it kind of wrapped up nicely. Like I don't see why he needs to go back in, but
right. Yeah. Do you think so? That was where I was at. I was like, man, if the season 2 is a smash hit, like, did they make a season 3? And then also, do they do it with these same characters? Like, I wonder, like, based on what you know about the manga, is that you're saying he does go back in though, right?
Yeah, there is like a little short run, like a mini run where I think he goes back in. I don't know why, but that's what I was reading. Like I was reading like a summary on it.
Yeah.
It starts from a perspective of someone else, and then Arisu has a reason to go back in and play the games again or something.
Jeez, no,
that could just be like a 2-episode finale. Like
so people were thinking like it could be like a movie, like they could cap it on a movie or something.
Oh, okay.
There were certain things though, and like I overall like Christine and I were, we're watching it and we kind of binged it like within a couple sittings.
Wow.
But there were certain what was that?
No, I just said wow. Like,
I thought you said why.
No, why? Why would you do that?
No, like why?
No,
I was like,
wow. Like it's impressive. Yeah.
Well, we watched a lot of movies. We watched all that. Like we had some time. But there were certain characters, like the guy who plays Karube, or just that character, like how he's just like, I'm a bad guy. Like the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like my purpose is to hurt as many people as I can and then go to hell. Yeah. And I'm like, what?
Did you listen to it in the dubs? Did you dub it?
Yeah, we watched it.
Oh,
Christine likes the dub. So that's exactly how he sounds.
Okay.
He's like, you want me to help you die?
Yeah.
I will not. Like, it's just like so ridiculous.
That's amazing.
Like, hearing it in English, you're like, this guy sucks, dude. I fucking hate this guy.
I watched it in the subtitles, so I'm sorry. Like, yeah.
No. Shit, that's funny.
Try watch a couple in dub. It's pretty hilarious.
I will not.
The guy who's Chishiya.
Yeah,
Watch Chishiya in English. It's pretty hilarious because he's a badass dude, but like his voice like doesn't quite it kind of works.
But
yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah,
but he had a super anime moment too, right? With that game, the numbers game was like actually, well, the probability of you picking this number and that number and that.
Yeah,
I was just like, this is like a super anime moment, but yeah, overall, really interesting show. I like that concept, kind of like we were talking about in comparison to Squid Games and that sort of thing. Like there's just a lot at stakes all the time for these characters. You never know who's gonna die and whatnot.
Right. I think the one thing is like it still doesn't satisfy to me like why there were certain humans running the games. Like I think that's the part. Like are they really people who are citizens of that world? Were they ever real people, or were they something that Limbo created to run the games?
So what I was thinking was like this is something that happens maybe not always there. Like their event was an event for them. the fireworks and all that, whatever the fuck. Like it was the meteor, right?
Right.
I'm thinking like all these other people, like this is limbo. People have died, and like this is their path to trying to. You have to fight to get back to life, and like that choice in the end, they're like, maybe these people who run the games now like survived, and then they had that choice: you can stay or you can leave,
right?
And they chose to stay, and then now they run the games. Like they prefer living there now, like stuck in limbo.
Like the ones, those two guys that were doing the prison game, they had to like figure out who was. Like what their symbol was on their back. And those two guys.
And one was like
staying.
serial killer.
The
other guy was just super controlling, crazy. But yeah, and they chose to stay.
Oh, that's a good explanation.
I'm assuming they're gonna stay in limbo now and like start. Maybe if they do a movie or whatever, maybe now they're running another game.
Yeah,
or something. You know.
Yeah, I buy that. That is a perfectly good explanation actually for that. Cool. That satisfies a lot. You know, I'm not super stoked on the whole meteorite thing, but. If there's a way they can do it and make the Joker come into play where it makes sense and all that, like, I ended up really enjoying the last, like the beginning part of this show and then the last part of the show. The middle got a little slow once Adisu got split up and ran back into Aguni again, but other than that, pretty solid.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. I don't know, Squid Games or this?
I like Squid Games.
I think this. Man, that's tough. Just because the Squid Games in general, I think it theatrically played out better. But in terms of like the creativity, I liked Alice in Borderland better.
I hear you. Gotcha. Yeah, for me, I think I'm leaning more towards Squid Games now, but the creativity of the games, definitely Alice in Borderland. Like the games that they came up with, is like, how the hell would you think of that? That is so crazy. Like just thinking of how could we create games that would mess with people, so nuts. So yeah, Alice in Borderland, still great, still well acted. The guy who plays Adisu is like a really great actor. He can do it all. Like he looks like he can be like really fun, make jokes, but also super serious, super dramatic. He's awesome. Like I want to see more of that guy. Sweet. Same. Now we're into, I think we're in the anime portion, right? And so next we didn't have Velma. Sorry, we're not doing anime. Should we just do anime?
I mean, it is technically animated.
Yes, it is animated. We'll do. Yeah.
We're an animated segment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you think? Do you have a lot to say? Should we start off with Velma, or should we go into anime?
I mean, it's 3 episodes deep. If you want me to go over it, I can. But I'm just going to give kind of a general overview.
We'll go in. We'll start with My Hero, then SpyxFamily, and then we'll end with Velma.
Okay.
So because I can do My Hero real quick. It's just a continuation, right? They have that big battle with Shigaraki, and now we find out that All for One is controlling Shigaraki's body and the rest of the Nomu, and All for One is in the Tartarus prison, which is like a supermax prison for people with quirks, and he's trying to break him out, and we're just kind of following up with all the heroes post-battle, right? They address the heroes that have died, they address the students who are injured, and we know that Ichiro? No, I'm thinking of Bleach. Midoriya is pretty much, he's like in a coma right now. And that's pretty much all that happens in this episode. So we're just trying to see what are the remnants of this epic battle between the Liberation Army, Shigaraki and his men, and all the heroes and the students. And also on top of that is, a lot of distrust now for heroes in society. Society can't trust them. That's all I got. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah. No, it's cool. I was thinking like how this show was gonna level up, and like now we got all these super villains who broke out of Tartarus to like now just go through. Now they gotta catch them and shit. Right. They're all healing. Like the stakes are even higher. So I don't know. It's really cool.
Definitely. The top heroes are all like wiped out from a big battle, and there's only really students left to protect society. And there's even more criminals from all these different prisons that are broken out now. So these students,
society's mad at them.
And I mean, they're mad at the professional heroes. They're not mad at the students yet. So maybe that's how they go. And maybe there's not a lot of professional heroes to really protect them anyway. So it'll be up to the students to kind of do it. So yeah,
True that.
it's really leveled up. I kind of miss the days in My Hero though of seeing them at the school and seeing kind of the curriculum they based around the students. But hopefully we get flashbacks on that. But I do miss those days for My Hero. Yeah,
It's true.
yep. Next, let's get into Spy Family. Scott, why don't you take it away on this?
Oh yeah. Okay, let me just pull up the cast real quick. So Spy Family is a fun anime. Christine and I started watching, and I know you started watching as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Christine and I finished this. This was kind of our fun show. We were just like watching like 2 or 3 episodes at a time as like the weeks went on and whatnot. But yeah, it's a fun show. Like it's like about this like one girl who's like psychic, and then she's got picked up from an orphanage from a spy. Let me pull up their names real quick.
Right.
Well, Anya's her name, right?
Yeah, Anya is the daughter.
Anya's the little girl.
Yeah, and then the spy's name is Twilight. At least like his operation name is like
Right,
Twilight.
and he goes by Loy Forger, and then your Forger is the mom who pretends to be the mom, and like she's a badass assassin. And it's funny, like the spy doesn't know the assassin's an assassin, and vice versa. And only Anya knows their secrets.
Yeah.
Because she could read minds.
And both of them don't know Anya's psychic.
Because she's told people in the past, and she's got returned to orphanage 4 times prior. So she's like, I don't want to go back. And like you get that backstory of like almost like an 11 situation from Stranger Things, where all she knows is like, you need to do more training and studying so you can save the world for world peace. And she's like, for world peace. So like anything she like picks up on, like that's like, oh, this is for world peace. She's like, oh, my mission. Like that's like her own thing that's driving her. But she also like likes having a mom and a dad. And it's just funny because she can overhear the dad, like he's playing the dad, and sometimes like he wants her to do something and she doesn't. And early on he's like, oh, maybe I can return her to the orphanage. I can get a new one. And she's like, oh, she just starts crying. And she's like, why are you crying? And he's like, no, return me. And he's like, why would you think that? And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like it's just like hilarious.
Yeah,
or like overhears the mom going like, I could murder him. No, don't think like that. And she's like, Mom's scary. Like in her, there's a lot of internal dialogue.
Or she does the opposite. She's like, I love Mom because she's like wants to kill this guy.
Like, oh yeah. I love when she gets to that like face like, it's going down. And like a lot of times she fucks up when she thinks she's like, when she's ultra confident, she like fucks up. But the show's just so fun. And eventually they get a dog
really?
that just adds to their thing. I'll just say that. It like adds another layer to like their dynamic.
Nice.
And it's just great. It's such a fun show. Like, so I definitely recommend, like, if you're looking for something light and funny, check this show out. There's only one weird thing is like when you meet the brother, yours brother, they get into that weird like sometimes the animes do this where like the brother's like hyper obsessed over the sister. Where it's like I'm the only one in your life, but sometimes it feels a little like
incestuous here,
just a little bit like on his end, and you're like, what's going on here, dude? But again, it's like it's not, but it's just siblings. The way they write it. It's exactly.
It feels a little Targaryen over there.
There's like an episode that's like that. You're like, what the fuck? But overall, it's a fun show, and then you get to see her perspective. Like you get to see some of the school stuff and like her like little small potato problems, but they're funny. And then you get like spy mission episodes and you get like assassin episodes. So like you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah. That's interesting. So it's kind of like the show from FX, The Americans, with like Kerry Russell, Matthew Rice. Did you guys watch that at all?
It's I don't see that. Think it's like, because this is more lighthearted. And
I see, okay.
I mean, the only serious part about it is like when he goes on his, like it starts off with a spy and he's very serious and his missions are very serious. But as like things go on, it becomes less and less.
Mostly playful. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of breaking down his walls. But it is like ridiculous. Like there's an episode where he's like, I got to go to the zoo and get this one thing from this penguin. And then they go there and like there's like 50 penguins. So but the daughter can like read minds, and then you find out she can read animal minds, so she's like reading all the penguins' minds, and they're like, and then she sees a penguin like choking, like, and then she's like has to point out a reason to like, hey, look that one, what's going on with that penguin, like without saying like I read its mind or whatever, and then the dad's like, that's the penguin, I need to weigh in, and he like takes someone's like wardrobe, like who works there, goes in, and it's supposed to be like this guy's first day. And the dad's such a super genius. He just kind of like looked over all the names of the penguins, and he tells the guy that like he's like, "Do you know the penguins' names?" He's like, "I kind of looked at it." He's like, "You kind of looked at it? This is serious business, buddy." And then he's like, "Oh, excuse me, Penelope." And then he's like, "Oh, that is Penelope." Like he just knows all the penguins' names. He's like, "This guy's better than I am." Like it's just like it's like so ridiculous and it's just it's like over the top. Yeah, it gets fun. And they also are living in a time where it's very like they're being spies is pretty normal. So there's people always ratting other people out for like being suspicious, and the government will come in and just like snatch you away. So that's why he's trying to make a point to have a normal family. And the assassin lady, she also is like unmarried, and they're like, "Oh, this is kind of weird. Like you haven't met someone yet." So she's like, this is a good opportunity for her to look normal as well. And in that relationship, they're starting to actually like their family and. Yeah.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Yeah. Really fun, kind of goofy premise, but it ends up starting to work. And it's like really, it's just a fun, lighthearted, good show. It has a little bit of everything, like you were saying. So absolutely.
Recommend it.
I highly recommend it as well. All right. So we are on last bit of review tonight. Drake, you watched something that actually has been getting a lot of hate online.
Yeah. Super a lot of hate.
But how did you feel about Velma? Do you think it deserves the hate? And what do you think about the show so far?
So it's on a similar line as Harley Quinn on HBO, the animated series.
Okay.
It gives me that
satirical.
Kind of satirical. It gives me that kind of vibe. Velma in itself is more of the main character. Obviously, it's called Velma, but it's kind of more of like an internal monologue and less about solving mysteries and like Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Machine. There's definitely callbacks to the Mystery Machine. There's lots of callbacks to the original Scooby-Doo as a whole, whether that's in dialogue or whether that's kind of like in the showing in itself. But I think the dialogue in itself is like pretty funny. Like I laughed out loud at some parts. There was one moment that stood out. A person, a character died, and then the skull popped off, and it happened to be like a popular chick, right? And Velma's like, "Oh my god, she doesn't have a brain," and then she's standing in front of everybody, and so she's like, "Oh, not that she's dumb, but like she literally doesn't have a brain." And like the fact that she had to reiterate it in front of the thing, you know what I mean? So the character dynamic is, she's a nerd, but she has like so the general thing is that Velma's best friend is Daphne, but Daphne's popular and they're no longer like friends. There's something between them. And then Fred is like the super handsome dude that everybody wants, but he's super rich. And Velma thinks he's kind of okay, and Daphne wants to like bone him, but Fred is like, he's almost prepubescent, right? He's like, "No, you're trying to like touch my dick right here, why?" You know, kind of stuff. And then Shaggy is kind of you know who Sam Richardson is? He plays he was on the Detroiters, he was in the Robinsons, I think, like that.
Looking him up right now.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar.
Oh yeah, he's in the Werewolf Within.
He's in the Werewolf Within. So just imagine Shaggy.
Tomorrow World War II as well.
Yeah, just imagine him as Shaggy. That's pretty much kind of his character. And so Shaggy, or quote unquote Norville Rogers, is wants to like be with Velma, but his love is unrequited. So this dynamic is just so different. It's a little bit more adult, even though it's set in the high school. I think Constance Wu plays Daphne, who is really great, obviously. And then Glenn Howerton, who was on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, plays Fred. And obviously Mindy Kaling is Velma.
Okay.
I don't know why it's getting all the hate. I didn't read those reviews. I don't think that it's trash, as some people say.
Right.
I don't know where that's coming from in terms of, I can see where it's coming from. Like, I haven't seen Scooby yet. Is Scooby going to be in it? To me, it doesn't really matter because it's the dynamic between the human beings.
Yeah.
There's lots of like tropes that we see in media today where they're hitting on topics that I think are a little bit more sensitive. Obviously, the changing of the ethnicities for certain characters.
Right. Like
people are probably uproar about.
Yeah, they made Shaggy black, right? And they change Daphne and Fred?
Daphne has two. She has lesbian moms. One is Jane Lynch, and the other one is Wanda Sykes.
That's hilarious, though.
Oh, that's funny.
Jane Lynch and Wanda Sykes, though. It's pretty damn funny.
Wanda Sykes, yeah.
It's pretty hilarious. And then Fred, his dad is what is the guy's name? Frank Welker. No. Gary Cole.
Okay.
Gary Cole is what is that called?
I don't know, but I'm thinking of Gary Coleman. So if he's not that, then I don't know who he is.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's a different person. Anywho's so Fred's parents are kind of a little bit more. They want him to be a man, but he's not really a man. The two lesbians of Daphne's parents are kind of like pushing her to do things. Like there was a point in time where Daphne wanted to lure her parents away. They're both cops, by the way. She's trying to lure them away. So she's like, oh, I'm at home, and I'm looking to adopt this kitten. So they just leave the situation immediately because they want their daughter to be whatever. Right. And, Mindy's or Velma's parents are kind of a little bit more, into her life. Russell Peters plays the dad's. Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine plays the stepmom. Mm-hmm. And so the whole situation is Velma can't solve mysteries because she lost her mom, and that's a mystery. And so when she tries to solve mysteries, she gets like this PTSD because she essentially
she hasn't solved that one.
She hasn't solved that mystery yet. So it's an interesting play on Scooby-Doo. I think if you're expecting to see fucking Scooby-Doo, that's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah. But in all fairness, Scooby-Doo's not in the title.
Exactly.
So
yeah, for sure.
I think if you're looking for something on the same lines as... I
got a question, though. Is there references to Scooby, though? Or are there like
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Because to me... this you could make the argument that this is pre Scooby-Doo, like
because they're all in school, right?
Because they're all in school.
Oh, okay.
Because they're all adults in Scooby-Doo. Yeah, I can see that.
Technically speaking,
and also like you said, it's like Harley Quinn in the sense where like that really revolves around Harley Quinn, and you get a taste of the rest of the DC universe, but it's not about that.
Yeah,
right.
Like if you're looking for a comedy on the same lines as Harley Quinn, where you're the character and those types of things, but you're looking for like the quippy, funny. Dialogue, I think, if you're bored, just watch Velma while you're like, eating cereal or you got like 30 minutes to kill. I don't think it's not a huge investment,
Yeah. Super selling us on it too.
Yeah.
Real quick though, we're trying to figure out what Gary Cole was in. He was Ricky Bobby's dad.
That's yes, he was Ricky Bobby's dad.
Yeah.
You ain't first, you last.
That's right.
I think to sell it a little bit more, like. It's a show that's going to keep you there because of the funny dialogue, and you're going to get to see how that works within the Scooby-Doo world, which we would consider like relatively prude. There was nothing really edging on the adult situation in the original Scooby-Doo. Even in the live actions, we don't really get to see that because it's mostly just caricatures, but they really give more literal character to these characters, a little bit more volume in terms of who they are as people, and then putting them kind of in the same room together and watching them kind of dialogue and fight and bicker and get along, et cetera, et cetera. So
right on.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out. It's good to hear from your perspective and knowing you and knowing what you like, that you actually have positive things to say about it, because I swear, looking on Twitter, it's like I couldn't, it seems like there's nothing really good about it. But, based on what I've heard from you, it seems like you beg to differ, which is great, which is cool. Like, I'm definitely going to have to check that out as well. But I think that's it for the night, guys. We've touched on everything. We've gone through The Last of Us, which we're going to be covering week to week. We've had some really great anime. We had a really great show that came back that we were able to wrap up, and a pretty cool new animated series on HBO as well. So, solid week. Guys, thanks so much. Appreciate you all for sticking around. If you can, please share this episode with one new person this week. We'd really appreciate it. We got a bunch of cool stuff coming out for you guys. We have spotlight episodes in the future. We're coming up with interviews with comic book writers, other podcasters, different entertainers across the board. So yeah, if you like anything that we're doing or want us to do something more of, please message us message us on Instagram or Twitter, or, send us an email, however you want to do it. We're all ears. And yeah, we don't want to be the last of us without you guys. So, all right, everybody, thanks for sticking it with us. Bye.
Shoots.
Stick it to ya.
The Joystick Show.
If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, we'd really appreciate a follow, subscribe, and a review. Just how we like chatting with our friends, please share this with yours. Feel free to join the squad and follow us at JoyStickShow, Joystick Show on Twitter and Instagram, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like submitting topics or questions to be discussed on future episodes, you can email us at joystick.show@gmail.com. As always, thank you, peace out, and make it a great rest of your week.